Okay, students, so we were discussing the plasma membrane or cell membrane, the characters of plasma membrane or cell membrane. So we have already said that it is a semi-permeable or selectively permeable membrane. Then we have already studied when we put a cell in a hypotonic solution, isotonic solution and hypertonic solution, what all process will happen. Okay, I hope that the three process happening was clear. Then we are now moving on to our next session, that is endocytosis. Okay, this is also a term which is connected with our plasma membrane or cell membrane, endocytosis. So endocytosis means endocytosis means we know that the cell membrane is highly flexible. Okay, it can change its shape, it is flexible. So this property enables the cell to engulf food from external environment. Okay, a cell can take food and other materials from external environment as the cell membrane is flexible. This process is known as endocytosis. Once again, what is endocytosis? The cell membrane is highly flexible. That is, it can change its shape. The cell membrane can change its shape and it can engulf. That is, it can catch. It can engulf the food and other materials from outside. This process is known as endocytosis. Then here a figure is given, that is endocytosis in case of amoeba. Okay, amoeba. This figure is important. Endocytosis in case of amoeba. That is amoeba. You know that amoeba can change its shape, right? Amoeba is a unicellular organism and it hasn't got a definite shape. That is, it can constantly change its shape. So with the help of its plasma membrane, the amoeba, this amoeba changes its shape. And when, so consider this figure. So in the red color you can see, so here in red color you can see the food material. Okay, so in red color this is the food material and this is the cell of amoeba. This blue color is the cell of amoeba and inside in yellow color you can find the nucleus. Okay, so when the food material reaches or the cell reaches near its food material, the cell invaginates. Okay, the cell changes its shape. Okay, one part you can see that one part of the cell membrane just invaginates and the food material is taken into that invaginated part. സെല്ല് ഒന്ന് ചെറുതായിട്ടൊരു ബൾജിങ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ സെല്ല് ചെറുതായിട്ടൊന്ന് വളഞ്ഞിട്ട് അതിൻ്റെ ഉള്ളിലേക്ക് ഫുഡ് മെറ്റീരിയൽ പാസ് ചെയ്യുക. ഓക്കെ, ദ സെൽ ഇൻവാജിനേറ്റ്സ് ആൻഡ് ദ ഫുഡ് മെറ്റീരിയൽ എൻറ്റർ ഇൻ ടു ദാറ്റ് പാർട്ട്. ലേറ്റർ ദ സെൽ engulf the food material and digest it. The cell material first engulfs the food material and the food material is taken to the inside part of the cell and it is digested. So amoeba takes its food by this process of endocytosis. So question you may have a question, that is how amoeba takes its food. So you have to describe the process of endocytosis and you have to mention that amoeba takes its food by the process of endocytosis, and this diagram also is important. Okay. Okay, so we have already discussed plasma membrane and up to endocytosis. So next we are moving on to cell wall. Okay, first we have discussed plasma membrane or cell membrane. So our next topic is cell wall. So you have studied the structure of animal cell and plant cell, isn't it? So what is one of the main difference between animal cell and plant cell? That is, plant cell will have a cell wall, and the cell wall is absent in case of animal cell. Okay, plant cell will have a cell wall, and the cell wall is absent in case of animal cell. So in animal cell, the outer coverage will be given by the plasma membrane or cell membrane. So in plant cells, outer to the cell membrane, so this is the cell membrane, and outer to the cell membrane, and outer to the cell membrane, a cell wall will be present. So cell wall is the structure which is present in plant cells. Okay, in animal cells, cell wall will be absent. Then the cell wall lies outside the plasma membrane. The cell wall is found outside the plasma membrane, and the cell wall is a rigid structure. It is a strong structure, and the strength of the cell wall is given by the component that is cellulose. Okay, cellulose is the main component of cell wall, and this cellulose will provide the cell wall with rigidity or strength. That is, it will be more rigid. Okay, the cell wall will be rigid than the plasma membrane because it is composed of a substance known as cellulose. Then from this figure, can you note any other differences between this plant cell and animal cell? Okay, you have to note some differences, and you have to tell it to me in the homework session. Okay, what are the differences you find in the two structures? That is, the differences you find in the structures of animal cell and plant cell. One difference I have already said, the presence of cell wall in plant cell, whereas the presence of cell wall is absent in animal cell. So in your homework, this is your homework for today. You have to draw the structures of animal cell and plant cell. Okay, next thing we are going to discuss the term draw a table in which you have to mention the differences, important differences. We have already discussed that in case of cell. Okay, you have to find it out isotonic, hypotonic, and hypertonic for today. Okay, so when we put a plant cell in a hypertonic solution, what was the specialty of hypertonic? Hyper means the water concentration will be low in the solution and the solute concentration will be high. Okay, so when a plant cell is put in hypertonic solution, the contents, the cytoplasmic contents of the cell will shrink away from the cell wall. Okay, so this is the cell wall, the outermost part, that is cell wall. Okay, the inside part, this is the plasma membrane. The inside part is the plasma membrane. Okay, so the cell wall, from the cell wall, the other cytoplasmic contents, that is the plasma membrane and cytoplasm, will shrink away from the cell wall, and this process is known as plasmolysis. Once more, when a living plant cell loses water through osmosis, that is, we have put the plant cell in what kind of solution? Hypertonic solution. In hypertonic solution, the water from the cell will move to the outside. Okay, water from cell will move to the outside, and there is a shrinkage or contraction of the contents of the cell away from the cell wall. This process is known as plasmolysis. So you have to remember what endocytosis is. Endocytosis means the taking in of food. Example, amoeba taking in of food by changing the shape of the cell membrane, that is endocytosis. So what is plasmolysis? Plasmolysis means when a living plant cell is put in a hypertonic solution, the cell contents, that is the plasma membrane and the cytoplasmic contents, will shrink away from the cell wall. This process is known as plasmolysis. So these all terms are important, and you have to also remember the figures when the cell